Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this Board of Commissioners meeting. Thanks for joining us. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyone parking for this meeting or using the bus can pick up passes on your way out the door this evening, and those passes are valid for today only. Ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the Code of Ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Is there any item on the agenda, the outcome of which will have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Also, does any board member have a financial interest in any public contract coming before this board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote. All right, we move to our consent agenda this evening. And does anyone from the public have questions or comments about this evening's consent agenda? All right. We do need to make some additions to tonight's agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd ask that we consider moving the proclamations to before public comment.
All right, do we have a motion to move the proclamations before public comment this evening?
So moved.
That's my motion, sorry.
Oh, that was your motion.
That was my motion.
I will second.
Second.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Ball. All in favor to move the proclamations before public comment?
Aye.
All right, do we have, we need to add the HCA resolution discussion to new business. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All right. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we also need a motion to add the Advent Certificate of Needs Support Letter to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, commissioners. Now, do we have a motion to, yes, Commissioner Wells?
Question about
Yes,
one
ma'am.
of the items on the consent agenda.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I asked the public, I didn't ask the commissioners.
Thank you. So on the external audit contract, I just wanted to know, we have 5 programs included in the audit, and then I think it was 3 additional, or up to 3 additional, is that correct?
I believe so. I'm looking for Melissa. I believe I saw her earlier.
Okay, so I was just asking about the audit. I think within that, there's 5 programs included in the audit,
Correct.
and then up to 3 additional programs.
She's making her way.
Making her way.
So the pricing includes 5 for single audits, and then that should cover on average the single audits that have been triggered and required. So hopefully we wouldn't have to need to come back to amend the contract again to increase the number of programs. But that is the 5, the base contract. The contract amount of not to exceed includes 5 programs.
Okay. And then can you just, I thought there was also 3 additional.
Now, if there's additional beyond the 5, then there's a per unit cost after those 5, but there's no cap because it all depends on what the expenditures are that they find that we expend in a federal program. So we don't have a cap, we just have 5 in the base rate.
Okay.
But there's no cap on the top end unless because it's based on expenditures of federal programs.
Okay, and then can you just later send the information on what are the 5 programs that we are going to be looking at within the audit?
And those 5, and Melissa can speak to this, but I believe they're also depends on expenditures in a federal program. So we know that there'll be certain ones like maybe SNAP, food stamps will be one that they would have done, and Medicaid, but we don't always know what others, so we're just building in a cushion in our budget to make sure, in that contract, to make sure it's covered.
Okay, thank you.
But Commissioner, we can let you know once those are identified, but they're not identified up front.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Are there any other questions, commissioners? All right, if not, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented and the rest, and amend the agenda with the additions as presented? Thank you. Do we have a second? 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 Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Horton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will move forward with our meeting. And we did amend to include our proclamations first. Our first proclamation is Nurses Week, and Commissioner Horton is presenting that, and Susan Creed is here to receive the proclamation.
Hey. Can y'all come over here where I can see you so I can read to you? Right here where I can see you. Good evening. I'm really excited about this. Being a registered nurse myself, just know that every word that I speak is, I believe it with all my heart. I know it to be true. National Nurses Week, May 6th through 12th, 2026. Whereas registered nurses constitute the largest health care profession in the United States and serve as the backbone of our nation's healthcare system. And whereas public health nurses in Buncombe County exemplify the highest standards of this profession, through their service, expertise, and commitment to health equity, health promotion, preventative care, health screenings, outreach, and emergency preparedness significantly strengthens the well-being of our community, especially among at-risk populations. And whereas public health nurses in Buncombe County Health demonstrate unwavering dedication, compassion, and respect as they deliver essential services across clinic nursing, care coordination, nurse-family partnership, communicable disease, mobile services, and quality improvement assurance. And whereas public health nurses in Buncombe County deliver critical frontline services, including administering vaccines, conducting disease investigations, providing reproductive health counseling, supporting maternal and child health, and ensuring access to evidence-based practice. And whereas public health nurses in Buncombe County empower individuals and families by sharing their clinical expertise and providing support for informed decision-making, thereby reducing health disparities and improving health outcomes. And whereas public health nurses consistently demonstrate leadership and emergency preparedness and response, including outbreak management, community education, and coordination with local and state partners to safeguard public health. And whereas nurses hold the distinction of being the most trusted profession in the United States, earning this honor for 24 consecutive years through their commitment to care, compassion, and ethical practice. And whereas Buncombe County recognizes and celebrates the observance of National Nurses Week in appreciation to the invaluable contributions of its nursing workforce. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Buncombe County Board of Commissioners proclaim May 6th through 12th, 2026 as National Nurses Week in Buncombe County, with the theme, The Power of Nurses, in recognition of nurses' unparalleled impact and contributions to healthcare. We urge residents to celebrate the essential role public health nurses fulfill in protecting the health, safety, and resilience of the Buncombe County community. Signed this 5th day of May, 2026, by Amanda Edwards, Chair of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. Thank you.
Commissioners. On behalf of all the dedicated nurses in public health, thank you for recognizing Nurses Week and for issuing this year's proclamation. Your acknowledgement of the 2026 theme, The Power of Nursing, truly reflects the essential role public health nursing plays in strengthening community, well-being, and delivering compassionate and high-quality care. We are especially grateful for your recognition during a year when our nurses demonstrated exceptional skill and commitment in responding to the recent measles cases in Buncombe County. The rapid action, the case follow-up, the community outreach efforts help protect residents and prevent further spread. An example of nursing leadership at its finest. This recognition is even more meaningful as our own public health director, Dr. Ellis Matheson, is also a nurse, leading with the same dedication, experience, and service that defines our profession. Thank you for honoring our work, our sincere commitment, and for all you do and your continued advocacy with public health nursing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate each and every one of you and all of our nurses across Buncombe County government and our region as well. Thank you all. All right, our next proclamation is Wildfire Preparedness Month. Commissioner Wells is going to be presenting that, and Ryan Cole is here to accept it.
Commissioner Wells, before we get started, we've got a few of our fire chief partners in the room. We'd like to ask them to come up and receive this along with us because they're a significant partner in wildfire response and prevention.
County of Buncombe Proclamation, Wildfire Preparedness Month, May 2026. Whereas nationwide wildfires continue to intensify, in 2021, an estimated 50,733 fires burned 7.14 million acres. By 2024, large-scale fire activity persisted above the long-term average. And whereas through mid-April 2026, the National Interagency Fire Center reported 63,366 wildfires, burning approximately 768,000 acres, well above typical early season patterns. And whereas in North Carolina, the number of wildfires has remained high. In 2021, 5,025 fires, 13,816 acres burned. In 2022, 6,099 fires, 20,126 acres burned. 2023, 5,101 fires, 18,748 acres burned. 2024, 4,588 fires, 15,706 acres burned. In 2025, 6,845 fires, 31,746 acres burned. And whereas as of April 14th, 2026, nearly 3,589 wildfires have burned 9,051 acres statewide, demonstrating continued early season wildfire activity. And whereas Buncombe County in 2025 experienced multiple wildfires, such as the 130-acre fire near Freedom Farm Road, 45-acre fire near Milksick Cove Road, 15-acre fire off Ox Creek Road, and 10-acre fire off Cane Creek Road, highlighting the region's susceptibility under dry, windy conditions. And whereas human activity continues to be the leading cause of wildland fires, accounting for nearly 85% of incidents nationally, and the financial burden of wildfire suppression exceeds $2.5 billion annually at the federal level, not including extensive local damages. And whereas research confirms that wildfire smoke exposure increases health risks, including asthma, exacerbations, cardiac events, strokes, and certain cancers, especially for vulnerable populations and first responders. And whereas proactive preventive measures such as defensible space creation, fire-resistant building materials, responsible vegetation management, regulated open burning, enforced building regulations, and effective evacuation planning are proven to reduce wildfire risk and enhance resilience. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners proclaims May 2026 as Wildfire Preparedness Month in Buncombe County and encourages all residents, property owners, businesses, community organizations, and government agencies to improve public awareness of wildfire risk and trends through outreach and education, implement mitigation practices such as home hardening, defensible space, and safe landscaping, develop and rehearse evacuation plans inclusive of pets and livestock, monitor and comply with statewide and county-level permits and bans on open burning during high-risk periods, that the county supports coordination among local, state, and federal partners such as the North Carolina Forest Service and national interagency agencies to enhance early warning systems and situational awareness tools, deliver community-level wildfire preparedness training and risk reduction programs, promote safe response strategies and protective equipment for first responders, communicate health risk advisories related to the wildfire smoke exposure, and foster policies and planning that support land use practices to minimize ignition and fuel loads. Signed this 5th day of May 2026, Amanda Edwards, Chair of Buncombe County Commissioners. And I just want to thank our emergency services and certainly all of our fire departments for everything they do for us. And it's certainly incumbent upon all of us to make sure we're doing what we can too in our community for wildfire preparedness.
Commissioner Wells, thank you very much for this proclamation showing May being Wildfire Preparedness Month. It's so important for us to remember within this is that we need to be prepared. And as Smokey the Bear has told us for over 50 years, that only you can prevent forest fires, only you can be prepared for forest fires, only you can be prepared for evacuations, only you can reduce the risk around your home. So let's all get our Smokey on and take care of our homes and be prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan, and to our chiefs as well. Commissioner Sloan is presenting the Hurricane Preparedness Proclamation, and Ryan, don't go too far. You are receiving that proclamation. Oh, Taylor Jones is receiving it. Good evening, Taylor.
More natural disasters. Hurricane Preparedness Week is this week, May 3rd through 9th. Whereas hurricanes and tropical systems have impacted every North Carolina county with disastrous results, and whereas North Carolina is repeatedly one of the leading states nationally for overall damage from hurricanes, and whereas Buncombe County continues to recover from the devastating impacts from Tropical Storm Helene's 2024 landfall, and whereas our community knows all too well how hurricanes and tropical storms can cause life-threatening hazards such as flooding, storm surge, destructive winds, tornadoes, and landslides, whereas we continue to grieve the 43 lives lost in Buncombe County due to Helene, and whereas people are less likely to be injured when they have prepared ahead of time and know what to do when a hurricane threatens, even in the mountains, and whereas people should prepare their personal emergency supply kit to use at home or during an evacuation with enough food and water to sustain the members of their household for 3 days or longer, have a battery-powered or hand-cranked weather radio, and should know their evacuation routes and comply with local and state authorities when asked to evacuate. Whereas Buncombe County residents are urged to sign up for BC Alerts by texting BC Ready to 67283 or by going to buncombeready.org. I'm going to repeat that one. Buncombe County residents are urged to sign up for BC Alerts by texting BC Ready to 67283. Whereas the National Weather Service, local and state government officials all work together before and during a hurricane or tropical storm to reduce the dangers posed to lives and property and provide a quick, effective response to these storms. And whereas the observance of Hurricane Preparedness Week by Buncombe County residents provides better protection from the dangers of hurricanes and tropical storms. Now therefore be it resolved that the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners proclaims May 3rd through 9th, 2026 as Hurricane Preparedness Week in Buncombe County and encourages all county residents to sign up for BC Alerts, assemble emergency supply kits, and update their emergency plans. Signed, Chair Amanda Edwards.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So again, preparedness starts with that readiness component of the individuals being ready and prepared, building their own resilience plan, their own evacuation plan, having 72 hours, go bag, all those things. One of the things that I was really proud of during the lean is see how our community all come together. And so I ask our community, I ask our first responder, be all hands on deck and be ready for the next wildfire, the next hurricane, the next landslides. We live in a disaster cascade post-lean because our environment's been changed. And it's just so good to see all of our community coming together to elevate our preparedness level. And I thank y'all for recognizing that. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Taylor. We appreciate the work of you and your team in times of disaster and helping us get prepared for the next one. Thank you. All right, Commissioners, we will proceed with our agenda with public comment next. The time limit for individual comment to the board is 3 minutes. Please state your name before you begin speaking. If your time expires, you may leave any question along with your name, address, and phone number with the county manager. Board members are not expected to comment on any matters during public comment. This is your time to speak to us. All public comments must be directed to the board as a whole, not to individual commissioners, staff, or audience members. There is no clapping, snapping, or booing allowed. The board reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the board during the same meeting. Please note, a group can elect one person to speak for 10 minutes if 8 people in attendance relinquish their right to speak on the same issue. All right, I'm going to do my best to read handwriting. If I get your name wrong, just correct me when you come to the podium. Stephen Foster.
I'm going to read this because I can't keep my thoughts together any better than that. My name is Steve Foster. Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners, guests, staff. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of Council of Independent Business Owners, and I'm a CPA. I'm going to be very direct in this. Buncombe County is at a financial crossroads, and right now the burden is shifting in the wrong direction. Property reevaluations have delivered a significant financial hit to homeowners and businesses across the county. At the same time, county spending continues to grow. Government obligations continue to expand. Debt service continues to rise. Those are choices, and they come with consequences. You cannot continue expanding government and expect taxpayers to absorb the impact without pushback. And just as importantly, delaying tough decisions only makes the problem worse. Kicking expenditures down the road to future budgets is not a solution. It is a liability. It shifts today's responsibility onto tomorrow's taxpayers, often at a higher cost. As a CPA, I'll say this plainly. This is how structural budget problems are created. Not all at once, but year after year, decision after decision, until the cost becomes too heavy to ignore. What's needed now are meaningful, long-term spending corrections, not temporary adjustments, not one-time fixes, and not accounting shifts that simply move the problem forward. That means taking a hard look at discretionary spending, reevaluating the pace of capital projects, and questioning whether every new program or expansion is truly essential right now. Local businesses are dealing with inflation, higher wages, workforce shortages, and rising operation costs. They are cutting expenses, delaying investment, and making hard decisions every day just to stay viable. Remember, every dollar in this budget comes from someone in this county. Here's what accountability looks like. Adopt a truly revenue-neutral tax rate, not close to it, not adjusted above it. Make meaningful long-term reductions in spending, not temporary deferrals. Slow the rate of government growth and reassess expanding commitments. Because if you don't, the message to taxpayers is clear. Government growth takes priority over their ability to afford it. The Council of Independent Business Owners will continue to advocate for fiscal discipline and respect for the taxpayers who fund this county. You have a choice in this moment to lead with restraint or to continue down that path. Thank you very much.
Dusty Pless.
Hello, Al. I'm Dusty Pless. And I'm going to tell you a story, and this story is about someone in Buncombe County, and it relates to the budget and what might happen with the budget and what might happen with the overall raise in valuations. There's a guy by the name of George, and George is not his real name. I've known him all my life, and he worked at Beacon Manufacturing years ago. He's been here most of his adult life. And you know what happened to Beacon. For those of you who are from here, you know what happened to Beacon. Beacon eventually closed, and the whole operation burned down. Anyway, George didn't go for assistance to any type of governmental agency. He, found a job, kept working. He worked for me part-time some, and he just kept on and on and on. And he kept working as hard as he could work. And when Beacon closed, he lost all of his retirement. And he didn't cry, he didn't whine, he just kept on. Now, George, here recently, he and I were talking, and George owns his own mobile home over in the West Asheville area. And George was complaining to me about some of the fees he's having to pay the landlord. And for instance, a dumpster fee. He didn't understand why I pay my taxes. Why am I having to pay for extra garbage? Well, I explained to him, I said, the city, even though you live in the city doesn't have a dumpster service. So your landlord is having to contract with a dumpster company to pick up your garbage. And anyway, the thing about it is George is the little guy. He's the little guy that he can't come up here and address you guys. Number one, he's got a bad speech impediment. And I've helped George all my life. And George is the little guy who can't come here and talk about what the taxes might do to him. So what's going to happen is when the landlord gets his tax bill, which obviously or probably is going to be higher, he's going to pass that bill on to George. And George, is going to have to pay it. George is 78 years old and still working full-time at Ingalls. 78 years old. So I'm up here talking for the little guy. And there's thousands of well, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of Georges in Buncombe County that have no say-so whatsoever in what happens here. Now you can say, well, they can go vote. Well, yeah, they can go vote, but they don't know how to defend themselves against, government overreach. So think about the little guys when you do this budget.
Thank you. Bruce O'Connell.
Hello. I'm going to speak about the little guy and tell a little story, too. We know you raised the valuations of people's property. We know that there's a word out there that it's going to be a revenue-neutral tax rate, so don't worry. I don't believe that. Eventually, the taxes are going to go up because there's a budget shortfall, and we got to find money somewhere to support all of these government programs. So There's a story here I'm going to share real quick. I know a guy that owns a small trailer park. The valuation of that trailer park in Candler went up 70%. When he went and appealed it and talked to the appraiser said, we base that value on the amount of rent you should get. He told the owner of the park, those things are worth $350 a month. The owner of the park said, but I only charge $260. Well, the appraiser said, well, they're worth $350. You need to raise your rents to what they're worth. The owner of the park said, I don't want to raise the rent because the people, the retirees, the people on a fixed income that live in my park can't afford to pay any more. Well, the tax appraiser said, sorry, your taxes are going to go up. You have a choice. You can either raise your rent or you can pay the taxes and keep the rent the way it is. Well, what's going to eventually happen if that's allowed to continue on a broader spectrum? Well, the owner of this trailer park can either try to stay in business by not raising his rents. He may or may not be able to stay in business. Or he's going to raise the rents, and these poor people living there that can't afford the rents now are going to be out in the cold. So the answer is not simple. You guys got to keep the government afloat. I understand that. But these people can't afford to pay any more rent. They don't own property, but the guy that owns the little trailer park can't afford to stay in business if he's got to pay higher taxes either. It's going to be a big problem down the road. So there's got to be a solution that'll accommodate everybody. I want to keep the government going. I want fire protection. I want police protection. I want good education in the schools. We all do. But what I don't want is to piss away money on social programs that we can't afford right now. And I'm going to close my little statement by saying I suggest the solution is to start trying to run the county more like a business, the way I run my business, the way everybody runs their business. And I'm going to quote a song from the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want, but you can get what you need. You all need to start running the county more like a business, do away with this discretionary spending for the time being, get your fiscal house in order. This isn't rocket science. We don't have the money. Nobody has the money. Inflation is hitting everybody. Tighten the county's belt now. Do away with discretional spending. Fund education, fire, and police. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, no clapping, snapping, or booing. Catherine Morisani.
All right. Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Catherine Morisani, and I'm a member of CBO and also a Certified Financial Planner, or CFP. My purpose is working with businesses and clients to review budgets, cash flows, and help them meet their goals. I'm shocked at the increase in budget and the proposed funding by increasing property taxes. I would actually expect our county government to tell me how they're tightening their belt. And if my recommendation would actually be similar to what the guys have talked about, that every business unit, every cost center manager should be looking at how to reduce their budget by 10%. When I used to work at a bank, and times were hard, we cut 10% across every business unit. Why would I say that? Because when clients and individuals or even businesses come to me and the budget is more than their income, we need to sharpen our pencils, review what they spent, and ask, is this necessary? We all know that right now, on a personal level, all of our budgets are out of alignment. And some of the guys gave personal stories on it. So I challenge each commissioner to dig deep, look at the budget with new eyes. The people of the county need each of you to determine where that 10% can be cut from the budget instead of growing it. And if it's really not possible to keep the budget the same, it's time for us to make the hard choices, like Steve and Dusty and Bruce already expressed. Thank you for your consideration, and please do that.
Thank you. Trudy Parker. I think I got that right. I'm reading handwriting here. Again, if I get your name wrong, just correct me when you come up.
My name is Trudy Parker, and I have never been before a group like this to address the situation. But the situation that we're facing right now is the reason why I'm here, because I am terribly concerned. We are at a turning point. For the first time in decades, our county actually lost residents last year, the largest population drop in North Carolina. Hurricane Helene has created economic instability here in our county. Raising property taxes now would harm our residents and our businesses in Buncombe County. Our local families and our business homeowners are already struggling. The 2026 reappraisal sent property values soaring. I know that over 11,000 property owners have come in for an appeal, and I think one of the people that have been here before said they know people who weren't able to come and even work on an appeal. I know those people too. They're our neighbors, they're our businesses, and they're hurting. We have seniors on fixed incomes, we have working families, and we have longtime residents that face crushing sticker shock on top of the storm damage they've suffered, on top of the skyrocketing insurance they're having to deal with, and the repair bills that there's nobody else to go to pay for. Many fear they're no longer going to be able to remain in their homes after they've worked so hard to pay off a mortgage, and they've owned them for decades. Our small businesses face the same pressure. Tourism and hospitality are still attempting to recover. Restaurants, shops, hotels, and local employers are battling higher costs. They have slower foot traffic. They have rebuilding expenses, and a tax increase would make it even harder for them to hire or invest or even stay open. Public safety must remain our top priority. Law enforcement, fire services, and essential public safety operations are critical for our residents and for restoring tourist confidence. I ask you to protect these vital services without raising the real property tax rate. I request you stay at the revenue neutral rate. Commissioners, the answer is to cut spending, and to cut spending this budget season. I urge you to go line by line through that budget and eliminate every non-essential program and expense that is not core to public safety, roads, or basic services. Use those savings to close the budget gap without raising taxes. Live within our means the same way every family and business in our county has to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Allen.
Evening. Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Matt Allen. I'm the Director of Government Affairs at the local Realtor Association. We cover several counties in Western North Carolina, including Buncombe. And I'm here tonight to ask that you keep the property tax rate revenue neutral and ask that you find ways to balance the budget that does not involve asking property owners to be primarily responsible for shouldering that burden. Citizens across Buncombe County are already feeling an intense affordability squeeze. Rising costs, higher insurance premiums, and everyday inflation are making it harder for residents to stay in their homes and for landlords to keep rents at stable rates. Increasing the property tax rate would further exacerbate the situation, leading to several repercussions regarding housing affordability, monthly mortgage payments, rental rates, home values, and property sales across the county. Balancing the county budget is of utmost importance, but relying too heavily on homeowners to close the gap is unfair and unsustainable. For many residents, even a modest increase can make a real difference on whether they can afford to remain in their home. We as the realtors are urging this body to take a measured approach that protects and continues to provide essential services without making housing less affordable and without hurting property owners across the county. And on this topic, I'm sure the commissioners are aware of this, but the General Assembly has a couple of proposals on the table related to property tax increases. First is Senate Bill 889, which would freeze the revaluation process for 12 counties across the state, including Buncombe. And the second is House Bill 1089, which would place a constitutional amendment before voters in November on capping how much a local government can increase property tax revenues. Please don't give the General Assembly more ammunition to come in and preempt the decision-making of local government. Adopting a reasonable, neutral revenue property tax rate will certainly give them much less of a reason to do so, while also helping the citizens across the county stay in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura McHugh.
Good evening. My name is Laura McHugh. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm a longtime resident of Arden and a property owner and business owner in Buncombe County, and I'm here to express a serious concern about the proposed increases in property valuations. For myself, I now see a 50% increase in our home value over the past 5 years in this new valuation statement. I also see a nearly double increase on our vacant lot, which is adjacent to our home, which is still covered with downed trees and storm debris. How can this property be worth twice what it was 5 years ago? For many homeowners, especially senior citizens and others living on a fixed income, it represents a significant financial burden that will ripple through our households and our community. People never thought they would be in this position when they bought their home many years or even decades ago. I would ask you to consider the timing of this increase. The people of the county are still recovering from the impact of Hurricane Helene. Many residents are dealing with property damage, financial strain, insurance challenges, and the lingering uncertainty that follows a major storm. We are physically, financially, and mentally exhausted from the strain. This is not a moment when families have excess capacity to absorb dramatic increases in their financial obligations. We understand your challenges, that you must provide public safety, utilities, and infrastructure services along with public education, which takes the most of our tax dollars. We need to slash the cost of administrative bloat in our schools and city halls. We need you to look at things you can cut to reduce cost instead of increasing the cost and the need to raise property taxes. I urge the board to consider a more measured approach. Phase-in valuation increases over time rather than implementing a sharp, immediate jump. Focus your relief programs for seniors, veterans, and low to moderate income homeowners. Ensure transparency in how your budget is determined and how these valuations were calculated, and provide clear avenues for appeal. In closing, I respectfully ask you to reconsider the scale and timing of this valuation increase. A more gradual and equitable approach will better serve both the financial needs of the county and the well-being of its citizens. Thank you for your time and your service to our community.
Thank you. Pepe Acebo?
Good evening, Commissioners. I know you folks from our interactions. I'm an elected school board member. You folks all know that. I wanted to talk specifically about the revaluations and how that impacts our request for a special tax rate. So as you've heard, there's a lot of concern about the 2026 revaluations being high. I've been working with my neighbors on, I think I've been involved with about 15 appeals so far, and tonight when I go home, I'm going to be working on an appeal for two of my neighbors who are 102 years old. Other neighbors include, I've got a neighbor who is fighting two cancers simultaneously, and her husband has passed away from cancer. And the timeline of doing these appeals and the burden of doing these appeals means that some appeals will come this year and more appeals will follow next year once people get their tax bills. what I'm seeing on the ground, and I have a narrow window that I'm looking at, just the appeals I've been involved with, is that the data folks who put together the valuations used a standard practice of looking back 2 years, finding comparable properties, and pegging the current values to whatever the peak was 2 years ago. And we had a peak 2 springs ago, and then the properties go down through the year, and they generally peak in the spring. And then last year's peak was about 8 to 12% lower than the peak 2 years ago. And then what I'm seeing is from last spring, the fair market values, what properties, comparable properties were actually selling for, took another dip of about 8 to 12%. So what I'm seeing, I'm calling it 9% and 2 steps down. Normally when you've got these valuations, you're on a terrain where property values are increasing. We've had some unusual things happen in our economy, locally and nationally, and interest rates and wars and gas prices and all sorts of things having to do with inflation as well that are putting pressure on house prices. For a school board member with an 8.1 cent estimate based on unappealed property values, I'm looking at that expected 18% drop once appeals settle over the next couple of years, and I'm looking at 8.14% or 8.14 cents not being revenue negative.
Thank
I'm
you.
so sorry.
You can
I'll catch
share
up with you
the rest
folks.
of your comments via email or with our clerk or manager.
Yeah.
Thank you. Charles Warner.
Good afternoon. I understand that the board is looking for a cost of living adjustment for the county revenues. My cost of living adjustment for Social Security was 3%, and that was before taxes, Medicare increases, Medicare deductible increases. The last thing I saw was a suggestion that the board is looking for a cost of living adjustment of 15%. Now, I would love to get a cost of living adjustment to my Social Security of 15%. Didn't happen, not gonna happen. The state suggests that in the event of reassessment of property values, that the county board adopt a revenue neutral tax rate. It's not a requirement, it is a suggestion. I would suggest that this board adopt a revenue neutral tax rate, or at worst, go along with what I got from my Social Security, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. So, may I ask, of those of you who are seriously listening to what has been said, and there's a lot of more people going to talk with you, please indicate that you will keep the cost of living adjustment for Buncombe County, the Social Security increase, cost of living adjustment, 3% or less. Is anybody willing to raise their hand or signify that you have any intention of doing so? If so, please let the people here know that you are hearing that 15% cost of living is way too high for Buncombe County. The silence is
Just as a
deafening.
reminder, part of our public comment is that this is your time to talk to us, and we are not, we don't respond on the dais to questions back to us.
And it's
I'm
not
sorry, Kurt.
appropriate to poll the board to ask for that during public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. All right, thank you, Mr. Warner. Sherry Warner.
When you all were candidates asking for our vote, you did not say that you would contribute to increasing the county budget. Buncombe taxpayers who fund the county's expenses expect administration to not exceed the present budget and work within that framework. It is already expensive to live in Buncombe County. Tax revenues are generous for core services. Now, new property assessments have greatly increased property values for residents and businesses beyond what is realistic in today's market. It was an unexpected blow at a fragile time. A revenue-neutral tax rate is needed so that markets can catch up and residents and businesses can catch their breath on whether it is worth owning property and doing business here. Expensive property and business operating expenses, doctor shortages, a hospital that's hard to trust, and too much focus on non-essential services and expenses are not a draw to our city and have caused relocations of productive people. Those that want to be on the receiving end are drawn here. In regard to housing, well-known trickle-down for a property owner, someone that offers their property for rent, that means that to cover additional property tax, that rent has to go up to make possible the expenses of owning property, taxes, insurance, and upkeep. To keep housing costs down rather than the costs, recurring costs, and artificial manipulation of affordable housing, why not try making property ownership less expensive, encouraging development by making building approvals, permits, inspections, and certificates of occupancy faster and simpler, especially faster. Delay in these processes costs real money. It has worked in many other towns. Taxpayers deserve explanations of itemized increases the county administration, financial officers, commissioners are asking for, and why. Also, present workforce positions in our government should be evaluated for efficiency and need. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who did not sign up to speak but would like to? Please come forward, CJ, and state your name for us.
Good evening, members of the Buncombe County Commission. My name is CJ Domingo. I am a candidate in this year's election for NC Senate, seat 49. However, I am here as a lifelong resident of Buncombe County and a homeowner in West Asheville's Camelot community. I'm here because I also oppose this proposed tax increase. I've been going through your budget work session materials, and I understand that you're planning on hiring more staff and accommodating increased operating expenses in the coming fiscal year. However, when we bump this tax rate, property tax rate, by such a large degree, it unfortunately always causes a regressive effect on taxpayers, which is to say that it hurts the most vulnerable folks in our community. First are young people who are already struggling to gain a foothold in our county. We saw after Helene that many folks used the relief checks as a chance to exit our county and go to somewhere that they could afford more easily. When these property taxes are inevitably passed along to everybody, young people will be further stymied as their attempts to make a home here, and this will make our community more vulnerable as we continue to all age. Second, as was documented by Urban 3, we have a history of these tax reeval-based increases leading to disparities in how the poor will end up paying a disproportionate share of the tax rate. More affluent homeowners have the time, the opportunity to come down here to fight to get a more fair assessment, whereas folks who are working all the time do not have that opportunity. And as y'all noted in your March work session, some folks might find it onerous or even anxiety-inducing to come down here and have to try to fight to make sure they get to keep more of their money. Unfortunately, that means that they're going to end up, as their rents go up, as their costs go up, they're just going to eat it. They're going to have to tighten their belts. Finally, since we're chasing away all the younger folks, that means that we have people who are older on fixed incomes, and they are what they call house rich but money poor. And as we've heard tonight, they're having to make do with a fixed income, food stamps, Medicare, and now we're looking to take what little they have left. Buncombe County Commissioners, I'm calling on you to continue to fight for our residents. I know that you were trying to keep your costs low, but we do need to get to a revenue-neutral tax rate. We need to make sure that as folks are just finding their stride again, we're not sweeping the legs out from under them. We're counting on you. So I'm calling on you to, again, please get a revenue-neutral tax rate. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? All right, thank you all for joining us this evening for public comment. All right, our next item on our agenda is our Board of Adjustment Annual Report. And Andy Ball, our Board of Adjustment Chair, is joining us with others. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm a surprise guest. Good evening.
I'm not sure about you all. I'm having a really hard time hearing in the mic this evening from there, so maybe step up. It might just be me.
Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just lean in really closely. Good evening. My name is Savannah Glantz. I'm the Zoning Administrator and Development Services Division Manager. The Board of Adjustment is one of the Planning Department's board, and my team helps administer applications and get them through the review process. I'm very proud of my team as they work behind the scenes to make sure that everything runs smoothly and supports the board. And I do also want to say how much I appreciate the board with the time and effort they put in and dedication, given the large volume applications that they do on a volunteer basis. With that, I do want to hand it over to Chairman Ball, who's going to do an overview of all of the work that we've been doing.
Thank you so much, Savannah, and good evening, Commissioners. How are we doing? Can you hear me okay? Thank you. I'm Andy Ball. I'm your Board of Adjustment Chair, finishing out my third term, hopefully, this year on the board. So excited to be here to update you on the board's activity. We've been very busy the past couple of years. I think it's been about 2 years before Helene since we last had a chance to talk, so I'm excited to be here for that reason, too. So yeah, I want to recognize Commissioner Moore as well as our prior member and chair as well. So we'll start with a few slides here. Moving on to the purpose of the board adjustment. We are your quasi-judicial zoning board, of course. Planning Commission will, of course, separately discuss new ordinances, make recommendations as an advisory capacity to the Board of Commissioners, and the Board of Adjustment, of course, is your zoning board that will consider quasi-judicial cases. It will consider individual planning matters. So for the public, you see the zoning sign in the yard, passing by a property in the county, you'll see that, and that's us. So we'll do the public hearing on all of those. We have 7 regular members, and we have 7 alternates. Those regular members stay on throughout the year and only can miss 2 meetings, and they're regular members. And we have 7 alternates to choose from, of course, for those regular meetings. Is there a next slide for this? Okay.
The slide remote's right here.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's useful. Thank you. They're your regular members, and here are the alternate members as well. We really appreciate the commission's time and effort that you put into evaluating applications. Each time you have a vacancy on this board, it's very important for the county commissioners to make sure you know who's being appointed to this board, as we do consider applications from developers that will result in certain special cases here. Purpose is quasi-judicial board consists of 7 regular members and 7 alternates. The board rules on variances from development ordinances, special use permits, special use permit modifications, and appeals to decisions of development ordinance administrators. We work with staff from planning department and from legal to conduct pre-application meetings, technical reviews, and feedback on preliminary applications. And we issue public hearing notices in accordance with statutes and prepare staff reports on each application that comes in. And of course, legal helps advise us throughout the hearings and of course in advance on our procedures and the case law. And of course, we move to a system where we're approving orders for each case right after the public hearing, right after the case is decided, rather than leaving that to the next few weeks. All right, for the past year, we've heard a few notable cases. There's a warehouse expansion of 20,000 square feet, 9 total mixed-use apartment projects. So multifamily is still the biggest driver that we've seen on the board, and we've seen requests for variances on height, parking, density overall. So those would be our biggest use of time there. And then, of course, a portion of those are affordable workforce housing. And then the Works Project Youth Camp expansion back in July 2024. And then, of course, the Ingalls rebuild in Swannanoa. And that was in the past 6 months here. And then we do a staff-led quasi-judicial workshop, and that's coming as well. Our fluctuation of cases changes based on market conditions in the county. You'll see the last 3 years depicted. We've got about the same caseload, a little bit of a dip for 2025. And of course, this year it's a little slower. We are meeting monthly, of course. The applications and sites are becoming more complex with floodplain requirements to adhere to, steep slope issues, and then they, of course, the applications themselves have right-of-way issues, easements, et cetera. All right, any questions for us?
Thank you, Andy. Commissioners, questions?
Well, start with a thank you for serving on this board. I know it's extremely highly paid, like all the other boards and commissions in the county. Are there any challenges that you anticipate the commission needing to address, or anything that we could or should be doing to kind of weather what the growth of Buncombe looks like moving forward?
That's a great question. I think staff's been compiling for the past year or so some commonly requested items in each of these applications that come forward, and our goal is to put those together in a more cohesive format for you as recommendations for possible code amendments. But we want to make sure we involve the Planning Commission in that too, since that is their primary role, and we're more of a case-by-case board. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm going to take the opportunity to ask a similar question, but first of all, also thank you for your service on this thankless committee. Sometimes high stress, late night committee, I'm sure.
It is. It is. And board members do take quite a few hours to prepare each month for these meetings. It is quite a bit we call them for.
We thank each of them for that work. I'm curious, in your experience, Andy, if there's anything you see in terms of the types of applications, what types of applications you receive that you think maybe shouldn't go to your committee, or should come differently, or should go to a different committee, or just in your personal experience on the board over the years, kind of how you view that time and those types of applications you've seen?
It's a great question and a tough one, because the ordinance itself is going to spell out, as you know, what is mandated to come before the board in each case, whether it's a senior living home, whether it's an apartment complex of so many units, et cetera. The table will show you what it needs, whether it's a special use permit or a variance or whatever else. And so it's a tough call to make there, because most applications come in and are approved directly through the department. So that's most of the caseload comes through and is approved right away there. And then the ones that need attention or a permit, special use permit, come to us. And of course, you'll handle conditional use cases differently. I think a review within the department of the conditional uses in those cases coming before you, finding out those factors as well, along with the special use permit requests, those can be, I think, coupled and evaluated for possible changes to the ordinance. So I think the case load is about average for the past 6-7 years. So it's where it should be, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Andy? Andy, thank you.
Sorry,
for,
Madam Chair,
excuse me.
apologies.
Go
I was
ahead.
trying to, Andy, again, thank you for all the work you and everyone on the board does. I know it is not easy, but it's dedication to our community that brings y'all to do it, so thank you. I'm curious if, did you see Helene impacting your workload at all? Did you see impacts from the storm of what was being brought before you? And do we need to be thinking about that as we consider the work that you all do?
There were more warehouse, industrial permits, uses, commercial uses, and mixed-use uses before the storm. And I think the staff would agree that the multifamily has been the focus almost solely after the storm, which is a great thing for the county's housing focus and our needs in the area. So that's, I think, where we're headed is more of that.
It is. Okay. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. And thank you very much to staff.
Thank you for joining us this
Legal to
evening,
Kurt,
for serving in the role as chair, and to all of the members of the Board of Adjustment. We are really grateful for your service, doing this really important work on our behalf, and to our staff for being here as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. All right, our next item is our public finance feasibility study from the Trust for Public Land and Ryan Olson. With the trust is joining us with more information. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to speak a little bit on the Trust for Public Land, our role, our involvement previously with Buncombe County, and our invitation to work with you all again in advance of the 2026 election cycle. So we'll go ahead and dive in, and if I'm on this, okay, great. Well, first of all, my name's Ryan Olson. I am the Conservation Finance Director for the Southern Appalachian Region. It's a position that did not exist in '22 when we worked with Buncombe County last. It is in an attempt to do more of public funded conservation work in the Southern Appalachian Region. A lot of our neighboring regions in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee have done much more of this work in the Southern Apps outside of Buncombe County. We would love to see more. You guys have kind of been the model since this work we did together in '22. So this work is funded by the Green South Foundation and the Doris Duke Charitable Fund. This work is completely privately funded, not with any county tax dollars. So the TPL's Conservation Finance Program works to help communities protect the places they love and improve access for people to enjoy through approval of funding both legislatively and at the ballot box. We're going to be talking about the latter today. So this is a pretty significant number I wanted to point to here. Our organization's been doing this work since 1996 in every corner of the United States, across the political spectrum. And in 2025, we crossed $112 billion publicly raised, working with counties and towns and municipalities of all sizes to bring more local control to the priorities around conservation. And oftentimes, that work was also paired with other capital needs. Trust for Public Land, just quickly, I know this is an education for some who may not be as familiar with our organization. We have been working in North Carolina since the early 90s. We do land conservation work, but I'm specifically here to talk to y'all today about the division of our organization that just focuses on conservation finance. As I've already spoken to, this is cities, counties, and states. We work at the state level too, to create more public funding. And the capital needs, those capital needs, sometimes our work finds us paired with roads, housing, schools, all of those things we're going to talk about here today. Oftentimes, it's not just conservation on the ballot. Quickly, just to give you some perspective of where we are in the United States, we are an organization that actually spun off of the Nature Conservancy in the 1970s. A lot of people don't realize that. Based in Northern California originally, but we do a lot of work on the eastern coast. You can see where we are, and obviously here in Western North Carolina. We have an 84% win rate, but what that means is just that we have a high priority to work with our partners, be that counties, towns, municipalities, to make sure you're only moving forward if now is the proper time to do this work. We are as likely as anybody to say, now is not the moment, or now is the moment. We feel like the voters are behind you. In North Carolina, where we've been working again since I think it's 93, 87% win rate. And this is an interesting slide. I'm only going to pause on it for a second. This is one of the things I found most striking when I came to TPL is that regardless who's in office, regardless what's happening in the world, voters tend to support conservation measures. And we have this, and we've been tracking this since our beginning in '96. I'm going to talk quickly about conservation finance in North Carolina too. Bonds are typically the mechanism used, just like you all did in '22. That is what the state really allows our cities and our counties, municipalities. It's the best tool we have to use, and you can see over $760 million raised since '96 in North Carolina for conservation funds using bonds. It's a process. We follow this same process, whether we're working in Buncombe or we're working in a smaller town, this side of the country, the other side of the country. We start with a request for technical assistance. That is what TPL is here providing. We've already gone through that. The feasibility research I'm going to speak to here in just a minute. We do a feasibility study. It's about a month-long process. That's been completed. If that feasibility study looks positive, and in the case of Buncombe, our suggestion was it did, then usually the next step is that with the support of the commission or the council, we move forward with a public opinion survey. Ultimately, that's the poll. That is when we really have more data to make our decisions, and we can provide you more recommendations. And then should this be referred to the ballot, everything after that is a campaign that is privately fundraised. That does not involve county staff. This just really kind of walks through that and where we are in that process. We are at the polling stage of this process. We are looking at the November election for the possibility, as you all have already talked about, of having multiple bonds. The feasibility research. So we're looking into all this list of different things on the feasibility research. We're updating our 22 numbers. So we already had fairly recent information. It didn't take us as long to update that. One thing that has changed, though, is since 2022, our state has further prescribed, is the word I'll use, what language we are to use in asking the voters whether or not they support a ballot measure. And so the language will be a little bit different in November than what the voters saw in 22. So, quick reminder, in 2022, with the 68.9% voting yes, Buncombe County passed $30 million in bonds for open space. We would consider that a high passage rate. Also, $40 million in bonds were passed for affordable housing in 22 at an almost equally strong 61.9% voting yes. So this is just a quick reminder of what our voter registration numbers look like. And as far as turnout goes, obviously we're going to see our highest numbers turning out in presidential years. It's anybody's guess what this November is going to look like. Depending who you ask, you'll hear we might see the highest voter turnout of any midterm in recent American history. Others will give you different answers, so to be seen. Report findings. So this is from the most recent feasibility study. And I want to note that the updated version of this with the interest rates at 5.59% show us that if you all are interested in doing a $30 million bond, as you all have discussed, the same numbers as 22, and the program was seemingly very successful from 22 on both the open space and housing front. That money was either spent or allocated, or is being allocated, I should say, between now and November. You're looking at $30 million, the annual cost for the median homeowner for the open space bond to be $22. This is also based on a median sale price of $465,000, which could be debated. That is a hard number in these times to nail down in any of our communities. Obviously, a place like Buncombe County, there's a lot of fluctuation too. At $40 million for affordable housing, that would come at an annual cost to the median homeowner of $30. Okay, so those are the updated numbers, and we wanted to make sure and share that with you all. The third step, as I mentioned, was just the polling process. So these are not numbers specific to Buncombe, but it is the next step in the process. So program recommendations follow polling. And so again, we would love to see fiscal impact. I think everyone would love to see fiscal impact at a reasonable level. And we feel like at the $52 roughly range for, and that's a maximum too. That's important to know. That's if all the bonds were issued at once. At $52 for the affordable housing and the open space, we feel like that is very much within reason of what we see nationally of passing and voters getting behind. And this is just a few of our bullets around program recommendations. Obviously, transparent processes. You guys have done that. I will say, and our pollster commended you all, that Buncombe County has probably done better than almost any other county we've worked with as far as publishing the work that was done with the 22 bond revenue, and it is easily found online. It's digestible, it's understandable, and so hats off to Buncombe County for that. That is not necessarily the norm. We'd love to see more counties spending a little bit more time on the online publication of the work that was done with those dollars. And then again, must be privately fundraised. This is a campaign. This is just some examples of whether that be mailings or online or television or radio. Those are all the things that go into the campaign process. So I wanted to keep it short today. I have my contact information here. I welcome you all to reach out to me for more information. I've had the chance to meet with some of you all. I have not had the chance to meet with all of you. I look forward to that opportunity. And I wanted to leave some time for Q&A. There's plenty more in that feasibility study. You should all have a copy of that. I really recommend spending a little bit of time. You all get so much to read, but that is a really good snapshot, whether you've been seasoned on this commission or you're new to the commission, of where your county is financially, where you've been through historically with bonds, and how you've raised public money in the past. Again, I appreciate the time today, and I welcome any Q&A.
Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and I am going to open the floor for commissioners who have questions.
I have a question for you, Ryan. First of all,
Sure.
thanks for being here and providing the information for us all to look over and dive into deeper. And from your experience, like taking these kind of funds, what are you able to see? Because one of the benefits that we've seen here locally is being able to leverage those funds and being able to bring in much more investment into the community. And so is that one of the aspects that you see the benefit of the bonds?
Yes, and I don't think this isn't just me talking. I mean, I'm talking to commissioners, I'm talking to town council members and city council members across 4 states currently. And I think there is a large push for more local control, and that is all sides of the political spectrum. What we've seen is a tremendous drop-off in federal dollars. And those dollars that you can go after for conservation are becoming much more competitive. I'll give an example. Right here in North Carolina, if you want to protect your farm right now using the farmland conservation dollars we have through the ADFP program, and the wonderful people that run that program would love to see our legislature better funding the program. But last year there was 60 million, between the last 2 years, it was $50 and $60 million in applications for roughly $5 to $6 million. That's statewide. That's agriculture. Obviously, that's not the only priority here in Buncombe, but I just use that example to say the programs are getting more competitive, and that program is now scoring applicants higher if they're able to raise local dollars as match. Some would contest whether that's fair or not, but that's just the reality of having fewer dollars to go around. And we're seeing that on the federal level, to a degree on the state level, like I just spoke to. So I think leverage is always important. If you're not playing with your own pot of funding, I can say with some degree of certainty, you're playing with a handicap, or you're starting, from a less ideal position when you're trying to go after larger dollars, larger grants.
Thank you. And then you'll be looking to get information from the public that will help inform our decision as to whether there's support for these to go on the ballot.
Absolutely. I mean, we start with the polling, and we're really going to learn a lot from the polling of where does the county feel like they are today. We've heard a lot of things, right? 22 and 26 are different years. And I think it's always really interesting to do polling regularly to understand where the voter sentiments are. And at the end of the day, the reason I really love this work, I've been in and around land conservation for a number of years. I've always loved this program at TPL because, again, it's about what the voters want. If this is what the voters want, they'll speak to it, and it's a program that ultimately can serve the community if the timing is right. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Question for Avril, but not for Ryan, so if
Okay.
anybody else has one.
If you have questions for Ryan, Commissioner Horton.
Thank you for the time that you put into this. My question, I don't even know if you can answer it, but what are the long-term maintenance costs of land conservation? And is it at any point self-sustainable?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a big question, but let me try to break it down a little bit. Land conservation is a big umbrella, right? And sometimes people get lost in the words. And so I think that's a helpful thing for me to spend a second on. Land conservation can mean parks. It can mean pocket parks, it can mean state parks, it can mean greenways, it can be mountaintops and working farms and forests. So it's hard to give you one specific answer to that. Trust for Public Land cares a lot about seeing land conserved that people can access, and you all have used these bond dollars that you raised in 2022 to do that, and hats off to that. That then gets put into the county's responsibility if it's a county land, or into the city's hands. But let's use an open space property. Maybe that's something that's a scenic vista. It doesn't necessarily have to be a working piece of property, but it's part of a view shed, say, that you wouldn't want to necessarily see development in. Or along the river, where we've got a lot of feelings about what should be along the river and our river buffers and our floodplains. Sometimes the maintenance costs of those properties are very little. The land trusts that ultimately hold an easement on them, if they're still held by the private landowner and they have just given up an easement, then they have a fiduciary duty, but they also have a duty, their IRS says that you have, as a land trust, you have to go in and you have to monitor those easements every year. But that just means that if a landowner said, I'm not going to build on this property, they haven't built on the property. Or if they said, we're not going to cut these trees, they haven't cut these trees. Or changed, something that would materially impact the easement. So it can vary widely. If you're talking about an urban park with playground equipment and a lot of use, those are wonderful. They come with greater maintenance. Some of the conservation that was done using the $22, it varies. From what I've seen of the list of the projects y'all have funded, it varies from higher dollar maintenance to much lower dollar maintenance.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions for Ryan? All right, Ryan, thank you for joining us. I believe there's questions for the manager. We appreciate your report to us this evening.
Thank you.
Commissioner
My
Wells.
question for Avril is just, can you kind of give us a timeline of the various steps in the process? Because this was just a presentation and we have time to do our research and gather more information, but can you go over the various steps? Because I believe y'all will be presenting us with more information at a future meeting.
Thank you. And we do have a slide, and I've asked Rachel Nygaard, who has been the one leading this on the staff side, to be here tonight to answer that question. So Rachel, and if they will put that slide deck up for us. Thank you.
In anticipation of this question, we prepared a timeline and sent it over to the PR team earlier today. I'm Rachel Sawyer. I lead the Strategic Partnerships Office. Should a bond referendum be approved, our team can provide coordination, as we are with the 2022 bonds, working with the various departments that have a role, like ag and land, parks and recreation, et cetera. So that's my point of connection. Since the Board of Commissioners approved the letter of engagement with Trust for Public Lands about 2.5 months ago in mid-February, we've been tracking what a schedule would look like should the Board of Commissioners decide to proceed with the process. There are 3 noted dates on this schedule where the board would need to take action in order to have all of the pieces fall into place for the November referendum. The first of those is 2 weeks from today, on May 19th. So you would have information in hand from the contracted or the technical assistance firm related to the public sentiment, the polling. And at that time, if we have worked with bond counsel and financial advisors to prepare a suite of resolutions that would accompany that board action to essentially formally kick off the process. The following day, the publication would go out, notifying the intent to apply to the local government commission, and we would then file that application. After the certain number of day waiting period, that would go filed with LGC June 1, June 2nd, the board would come back for their second board action that's noted on this schedule on the far right of the top row, where the bond orders are introduced and the resolution on setting a public hearing. That's followed by some action to be taken on June 16th to hold that public hearing. Bond order gets published later in June. Notices of the special referendum occur in September and October for a November referendum as part of the general election.
Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Our next item is our county manager's FY27 recommended budget, and Avril and John Hudson are here to provide more information for us. Good evening.
Thank you, Commissioners, and good evening to you. And thank you for the opportunity to present the fiscal year 2027 budget. John steps up. Good, he's going to advance the slides for me. Okay. They are coming. But as you know, our budget process spans over 8 months. We started with you in November with a retreat to discuss the elements and goals that would influence our budgeting. Departments submitted budget requests by the end of January, and we met with you again in that month to focus on capital infrastructure. We've held work sessions to discuss requested expenditures, revenue forecast, fiscal year 26 year-end projections, and we discussed the fire district taxing consolidation. With the enactment of the K-12 school funding formula, we did not have an in-depth discussion on education funding, except for the Asheville City School supplemental tax requests. This has all helped me to get to this point tonight in crafting the manager's recommended budget being presented for your consideration. It's important to note that there's no action needed tonight. A public hearing will be held at our next meeting on January 19th on the recommended budget. After hearing from the community, the board will work to reach a final adopted budget scheduled for your June 2nd meeting. For tonight's agenda, we will discuss this year's context for budget planning, provide an overview of our budget by strategic plan priority, review our capital improvement plan, and a review of our other annually budgeted funds. Just to discuss some budget context or the backdrop that we were looking at as we began our budget planning, we'll turn to our economic environment. Our local economy has been in recovery with our unemployment rate returning to the pre-storm levels and sales tax and occupancy tax, two of our financial indicators, project to rebound. Beyond our local economy, there are broader concerns, namely continued inflation, as well as the conflict in Iran, which is putting upward pressure on gas and oil prices. Also at the state level, a fiscal year 26 budget remains unpassed, and there are multiple proposals at the General Assembly to change the ways local governments approach property tax collection. We are tracking this proposed state bills closely, as property tax represents 70% of our general fund revenues. Speaking of property taxes, current state law requires a property reappraisal every 8 years, or when the ratio of sales to assessment is greater than 85%. We met that threshold in 2023, and we were on track to complete a reappraisal in 2025. After the storm, we delayed their reappraisal until 2026, effective January 1st. We completed a reappraisal and saw 43% growth of our tax base, which now generates a revenue-neutral rate of 39.22 cents per $100 of assessed value. This reappraisal represents an opportunity to reset the tax rate to maintain fiscal sustainability and fulfill our community's level of expected service. Moving to an overview of our recommended fiscal year 2027 budget. This budget invests in rebuilding, funding essential services, as well as priorities from our 2030 strategic plan. Overall, it is a 12% increase in expenditures from the amended FY26 budget. But please remember, the FY26 budget was a budget that was reduced strictly to maintain operations in the aftermath of the storm. There are 32 positions recommended in this budget across various departments. As outlined in the personnel ordinance, the budget includes a 2.1% cost of living adjustment for county staff. After our reappraisal, I'm recommending a 4.3 cents above revenue neutral for a tax rate of 43.52 cents per $100 of assessed value. This is a reduction of 11.14 cents from the FY26 54.66 cents tax rate. The total general fund budget is $485.1 million. As we look at our spending functions, education is our largest function at $137.3 million, or 28%. Next is public safety at $106.4 million, or 22%. Human services, slightly behind at 21%, or $100.3 million. General government is budgeted at 72.7, or 15%, with debt following at 6% at $28.4 million. If you look at this differently and you pivot to how we group categories for our strategic priorities, we see growth and development focus area of 3%, or $14 million. Economic development, 1% at $5 million at this budget. Community health at 104.8, or 22%. Public safety, 112.3 million, representing 32%. And our investment in education at 151.8 million, or 31%. Our energy and environmental focus area at 5.3 million, or 1%, and our foundational focus area of 91.9, or 19%. A deeper dive into those strategic priorities. Our growth and development focus area includes affordable housing, as well as community development, planning, permits and inspections. This is to ensure housing and development is thoughtful across our county. We are restoring our annual contribution to the Affordable Housing Services programs this year at $2.3 million. We're investing in the development of the Anchor Recreation Destination. This is the money required to match the grant from the TDA at $4 million, the $4 million grant from TDA. This is a multi-year plan to make that match. And this year it'd be 1.1 million, and 1.5 million of debt service investment. Additionally, we're investing in staffing in this area with an assistant director for our planning department. This is to help with oversight and to handle the growth that we see in the planning office. 3 positions in permits and inspection. 2 code enforcement inspectors. These are code enforcement officers. And this is to handle that increased volume that we're seeing. And 1 code enforcement team manager. And that team manager is for that multidisciplinary code enforcement team to coordinate our response to nuisance abatement issues. These positions in permits and inspection is funded by that restricted revenue in permits and inspections. Our economic development focus area supports business expansion, and we're investing $1.8 million in a transfer to meet our obligations for economic development incentives. The education focus area is the largest investment in our strategic plan, as well as you saw from our spending budget plan, at 28%, or $121.5 million. The funding formula we agreed to with the 2 school systems in February, it provides an additional $11.1 million in funding this year for K-12 schools, providing revenue growth to AB Tech College of $264,000. That's the increased funding in AB Tech this year. We continue to invest in early childhood education at 3.9, transfer for pre-K activities. This focus area also includes our library system, and this budget recommends a social worker for a Pat Memorial Library location. Our community health focus area is committed to increasing healthcare costs across the county, healthcare access across the county. This includes transportation services, for county support, such as mountain mobility and the Trailblazer route, with a $1.5 million transfer to the Transportation Fund. The county is also providing an increase to support animal sheltering costs. There are 7 positions recommended in this community health section. In public health, 2 food and nutrition inspectors. These position helps us to meet our facility to inspector ratio. A public health nurse, which was previously grant funded for the mobile team. In addition, social services, 1 social worker for adult services, long-term care, case management, and 1 social worker for transitioning or foster youth to adulthood. 2 positions are recommended in Parks and Recreation, a landscape supervisor and a program supervisor related to the acquisition of Beaverview Mountain. In our public safety focus area, we are investing in $1.5 million for detention center healthcare costs and food costs for our inmates, and a call monitoring software. The sheriff's office is also recommended for $680,000 for firearm replacement and dash cams and body cams. For preparedness, we're investing $357,000 for radios for emergency operations. And additionally, $262,000 for a lease for cardiac monitors for our ambulance. This budget recommends 7 positions in the public safety arena. 2 for the sheriff's office, 1 being an accreditation manager. This was previously grant funded to maintain the recently received national accreditation and to pursue state accreditation. And a property and evidence manager to oversee that process from intake to disposition. For emergency services, I'm recommending an emergency manager specialist to augment our staff in emergency preparedness, a training officer for emergency medical services, and 2 community EMTs. These EMTs were previously grant funded, and that grant expires in December. I'm also recommending a 3rd shift supervisor for the County ID Bureau. This is to provide oversight and leadership on that overnight shift. In our energy and environment focus area, we are restoring our investment in conservation easement to its annual allocation of $750,000. And we are incorporating Asheville and Buncombe air quality into the county at a net cost of approximately $123,000. In this area, I'm recommending a stewardship coordinator within our Ag and Land Resources Department. This would eliminate a contract and bring in-house the ongoing compliance monitoring and maintenance of our easement program. Our foundational focus area restores $1 million of funding for community investments via the strategic partnership grants. We are looking to replace our end-of-life telephone system for $500,000 and invest in transfers of $1.3 for our appraisal fund as we plan for our next FY29 on a shortened cycle, and also for a full measure on list to improve our data quality in reappraisal. $555,000 will be allocated to pay the Woodfin Project Development Finance and Debt Service. There are 12 positions recommended in the foundation focus areas. 4 of these positions are general services, to include an electrical specialist, HVAC specialist, maintenance technician, and a senior project manager. As we make improvements and investments in our buildings' upkeep, hiring staff to keep maintenance schedule and prevent deferring that maintenance is critical. An administrative assistant, a grants manager, a budget, a finance, and a management analyst, all to provide support to service delivery departments due to increased workload. In property assessment, an administrative support position, and a reappraisal analyst to continue to invest in staffing as recommended by the various studies of our assessment process, and a revenue collector for the tax collections, again, to manage the workload increase. As mentioned in the overview, Per our personal ordinance, the budget includes the cost of living adjustment for county employees of the 2-year average of the Consumer Price Index, calculated at 2.71%. This represents $4.8 million in the recommended budget. I strongly believe in investing in our employees. To fund the $485.1 million expenditure budget, the three largest revenue sources are property tax, intergovernmental, and sales tax. These three sources represent almost 90% of the revenue to fund these expenditures. With their $1.9 million use of fund balance for one-time expenditures, this represents the revenue needed to balance the budget. In North Carolina, local governments must have a balanced budget. Revenue neutral rate for Buncombe County is calculated at 39.22 cents per $100 of assessed value. I'm recommending a 4.3 cent increase above that revenue neutral rate for a tax rate of 43.52 cents per 100 valuation. This would result in $192 in additional annual taxes, or 16 cents per home, which is valued at the Buncombe County median value of $446,500 home. The state is currently looking at changes for property taxes for local governments. Senate Bill 889, the one that is moving rather quickly, currently proposed in the North Carolina Senate, would require counties that conducted a property reappraisal effective January 1st to delay the implementation of those values for 1 year. If that legislation were to pass, it requires the county to use the prior year values. This would require a tax rate of at least 63.89 cents per 100 assessed value to balance the budget using the prior FY26 tax values. We're still working through this and how this will be applied, but we will keep you posted as we learn more. This is supposed to be resolved by May, so that other governments in this situation will have an answer before June when budgets are required to be adopted. Now moving to capital projects and vehicles. For our investment in capital infrastructure, I'm recommending 11 projects totaling $38.3 million in debt finance projects. Debt service on these projects would not impact the FY27 budget. As you can see, they range from public services, which is emergency services, to our storage facilities, and justice services and courtroom renovations. In addition to this, I'm recommending 6 capital projects pay-go or cash funded by a one-time use of appropriated fund balance, $1.6 million of appropriated fund balance. For replacement vehicles, instead of buying new, we're looking to remount 3 ambulances and replace 46 vehicles that are aged, maintenance, or high mileage. All of these will be debt funded, with the exception of the use of the permits and inspection 5 vehicles, which will be funded by their restricted fund balance. For new vehicles, we have 7 vehicles associated with new positions and adding 9 vehicles to our Health and Human Service motor pool through a leasing program. And that motor pool will be for social workers and environmental health, and it would reduce the cost we pay for employee mileage on their vehicles. Beyond the general fund, in our other funds category, we will increase tonnage fees in the solid waste fund to increase revenues as they begin to plan for cell construction. This ensures future cell development and less reliance on their fund balance. The reappraisal fund receives a $1.3 million transfer for the compressed timeline for reappraisal, as well as a full measure and list, as we continue to improve our data for the 2029 reappraisal. In the Special Taxing District Fund, we have consolidated 20 fire taxing districts into a single taxing district and are investing an additional $13 million in county fire services this year. In the Opioid Settlement Fund, we'll continue implementing the community-driven opioid settlement strategic plan, including support of recovery housing for impacted families. The recommended fire district tax. I'm recommending Asheville City Schools remain at the revenue neutral rate of 8.14 cents. With the consolidation of the fire districts, I'm recommending a rate of 11.73 for the unified district. This is 2.35 cents above revenue neutral. Commissioners, all documents associated with the fiscal year 2027 recommended budget to include the 2027 proposed fee schedule are available with today's agenda. The fiscal year 27 Budget Explorer is an online tool the public can use to explore our budget in more detail. The next step in our process is the required public hearing. The public is invited to share input on the recommended budget in person on May 19th, 2025, here at 5 o'clock at your next scheduled meeting. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present the recommended budget for fiscal year 2027. It's been a journey getting here, and I do look forward to our conversation in the next several weeks as we move forward to an adopted budget and any changes that you would like to see made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Avril and John, for advancing the slides. We appreciate the work. As we know, this is the manager's recommended budget this evening. There is not a vote to be taken. That will occur the first Tuesday in June, as the manager just stated. Commissioners, our work begins now over the next several weeks as we hear from our residents across the county, as we hear from those who come to speak at public hearing. We've already started hearing from our residents this evening during public comment. And so my request to you is any recommendations, changes, questions that you have to schedule your meetings with Avril by Friday, May 15th, so that any additions and corrections can be made prior to that budget being published for the public hearing, unless you have a different date now.
I do have a different
You have
date,
a
and I've
different
asked
date, okay.
Jennifer to send out some holes on my calendar that we can start meeting with you. Jennifer Aviles. I'll be clear. My admin assistant, Jennifer Aviles, will be sending out some dates with you that we can get on our calendar, and that will begin the week of the 18th.
Okay.
So we'll hear from the public on the 19th, and any changes, we will start getting those ready to be published for that by the 27th for our meeting on the 2nd.
Okay, before the vote.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, did we all get that? All right. Did you have a question, Commissioner Wells?
I did. I just wanted to thank you very much. This was helpful. And I just wanted to go back to one slide to reiterate something, because I do think there's some misunderstanding in the community about the property reappraisal. So could you go back to that slide, John? And Avril, could you speak again to the fact that this is required by the state? It wasn't as if Buncombe County just decided that we're going to do a reappraisal right now. Like, legally, we were required, and we did get permission to put off 1 year. But can you speak to that? Because I think that's a really important thing to emphasize, that
We can't hear you.
State law does require an 8-year cycle. Buncombe County chosen to do it at 4-year cycle. It's still not working. There we go. I'll start over. State law does require an 8-year revaluation cycle in North Carolina. In Buncombe, we voted on a 4-year, so we had to advance that a little bit faster because we're on a growing community. But the bullet point there that is most important is that sales ratio compliance. In 2023, we received our letter from the state telling us that we were already not in compliance with that 85%. The law requires you, once you get that letter, to complete your reval within 3 years. So from 2023, we had to have it done by 2026. Our schedule would have had it in 2025 because of that 4-year cycle. But when Helene caused us to delay in 25, we had 1 year then to complete it to be in compliance. So we did not choose what year. The law required that we had it completed by 2026.
thank you. That's helpful. And then also, if you'll go to the Senate bill, because there's something in there, I want to make sure I understand with what you had in that slide. Would
you put the slide back up on the big screen? Thanks.
Because if I was looking at that quickly while we were going through this, right, that Senate bill is talking about making us have to not be able to use the current reappraisals,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And so just see if I'm understanding this correctly, right? Because the reappraisals is about getting the property to a fair market value. And we know we have many appeals because we know it's not a perfect system, and so people are appealing. But it's to get it to a fair market value across the county, right? So everyone is paying their fair share. If I'm understanding what you have on this slide, then if they were to pass this Senate bill, right, it delays that property reevaluation that we've just done, but we're still going to have, well, potentially, I mean, a tax increase is what you were showing on the other side. Like, we still have to do a budget, right? And so you're looking at a very significant tax rate increase, much higher than what it would be. And if I'm understanding this correctly, then it means that it's going to be more of a burden on the property owners, because the reality is there's been a lot of other property come online and the increase in value that spreads all that out. Whereas if we have to go back and use the previous value, then that is actually going to be much more detrimental to property owners because of the tax increase, if I'm understanding. So can you elaborate? Because I just saw it for a couple minutes there on the slide.
No, you're exactly right. And the one thing I would notice in this that would also be detrimental to us, that helps to put that burden onto other taxpayers. Do you recall last year we were pushing legislation for the public service equalization?
Right.
So our values are even further behind, one more year. So last year we were asking for the $2 million that we would lose. This year, the estimate is that that's now grown to over $3 million. So that is $3 million of revenues that would not come in, that we would need to make up some other way.
So go over that again. You're saying if they make this change?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so can you go over that again, please?
If they make this change, and you should have this as some information as well, but public service revaluations happen at the state level, and it's based on your sales ratios. When our sales ratio does drop, that's one of the reasons they tell you after 85 that you must do a revaluation, so that the residential taxpayers is not bearing that weight all, but those public service entities are also paying their fair share. When you delay that reevaluation, that ratios goes even further apart, and that's what has happened to us now. So last year, we were asking for legislation to keep us armless, so that, not to name a public utility, but the biggest one we have is Duke, that they would pay their fair share and not just pay the rate based on that equalization number. Last year, we would have lost $2 million based just on the formula. This year, that formula says that we will lose about $3 million for Buncombe County. And then when you look at our taxing districts, that's another 1.2. So in total, our county and municipalities will lose over $4 million just because we would not have done a reevaluation. And that is the money we would have seen from the public utility companies.
And to clarify, we asked for that $2 million, but they never did end up.
No, the budget
Yeah,
never
so
passed, and that was going to be part of
Right,
that
so
documentation.
we lost that $2 million last year in the budget from our public utilities. And if they were to pass this Senate bill, you're talking about we're going to lose $4 million from our public utilities.
Inclusive of all the municipalities. Just looking at Buncombe County's
Okay.
budget alone, it's over $3 million.
Over $3 million for us, but for everyone.
Everybody,
all the
yes,
municipalities,
all the taxing districts, yes, ma'am.
Which then that burden is going to be then placed on all the other property owners.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And we're trying to make that known, and that number is actually coming from the state office. They're the ones that's calculating what that impact would be for this tax. Across the state, the 12 counties impacted is over a $10 million loss to those 12 counties that is impacted, that had a revenue reappraisal in January 1st of 2026.
Okay, thank you for this additional information. This is really important for us to be aware of.
So, Avril, am I understanding you right that the budget office is now all of a sudden preparing a second entirely different budget in anticipation of this potential bill passing?
We haven't done an entirely different budget yet, but yes, we looked at what those values were from last time, look at what the value of a penny would be, and what it would take to balance the budget as is. We have not yet taken any input from the board,
Yeah.
make cuts, so that could change that rate. But as it sits today, that's the rate that would be needed.
Other questions?
And that will be going from the 54.66 cents rate that it is today.
And just to kind of build off Commissioner Sloan's comments, it is not a cheap endeavor to have to do a reeval. And that's part of the argument. Folks have argued that we should do reevaluations more often, but the counterbalance to that is that they are expensive, and that is a cost that you have to spend to get the reevaluation back. So if the legislature were to do this, it would just push that back by a year, and then that value would be a year old when we then institute it in a year. Is that right? Is that what they're proposing? Is that because I had heard that we get to use the same reeval, we're just delaying instituting it. Is that?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay. That's a good question.
Yeah, delay instituting the thing we already did so that it's stale by the time it's not as
current.
accurate when we utilize it. So.
Are there other questions?
And then we have to do a revow again in 29, right?
That's correct.
That will be the question for the board to decide if they want to push that back even further, because,
We need to.
yeah.
Other questions?
I have one unrelated to my disdain with what's on this slide. But as I was hearing you, Avril, talk through your budget proposal, and I guess, again, thank you to you and to staff for all the work that goes into this. But I was reminded of our discussions last year, and kind of, as we all know, I'll use the phrase bare bones, kind of stripped down budget we ended up passing because of the impacts of Helene on the sales taxes, et cetera. And that there was, sacrifices that staff had and that county management had, that you strip them some things down that you wish you hadn't, that impacted the organization and internal staff and training and that sort of thing. I remember having those kind of conversations. I guess I'm just asking, is some of that, some of those things that you hoped for, that you want to maintain in a normal year, is that back in this budget? Are you back on track, so to speak?
We didn't bring it all back, but yes, we started to incrementally bring some of those items back, especially training that was for certificates and folks that have to maintain certifications. Those were first priority. So some of that is back in this budget, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? All right. Thank you very much, commissioners. We have a lot of work to do between now and the first Tuesday of June. We have no public hearings this evening. We will move into new business, and our first item is a farmland preservation ordinance revision, and Ariel Zip, our farmland preservation program manager, is joining us with additional information. Good evening, Ariel.
Good evening. Thank you. All right. Well, I am happy to be here tonight to share some information on our farmland preservation ordinance update. So just as an overview, this ordinance outlines the process and requirements of our county farmland preservation program. That includes our Ag Advisory Board duties, Voluntary Ag District Program, Enhanced Voluntary Ag District Program, as well as our Conservation Easement Program. So our last time we updated this program, did a major the ordinance was 2016, a couple minor language updates in 22, and then last summer, the general statute had a required change for all county farmland preservation ordinances to update, and so that is why we're here today. So just as an overview of the steps we have already taken before coming here tonight, we worked with our department head as well as county legal to revise the current ordinance to reflect three kind of main changes. That general statute change, we made sure our ordinance followed the state recommended model ordinance for farmland preservation, as well as ensuring that it reflects our current program practices. So our Agricultural Advisory Board recommended this ordinance a couple weeks ago. And so now we're here today to talk a bit more about it. All right, so I'm going to break down the three main areas of the changes to give you a bit more information on that. But That House bill was House Bill 126. And essentially what it added to our ordinance was to require public hearings for all land in the voluntary ag district as well as in the enhanced voluntary ag district. If that land is being condemned or rezoned, it requires a public hearing now. So it also extends timelines and expands conditions for those public hearings. Previously, rezoning wasn't one of those requirements for public hearings, and now it is. It also establishes some minimum timeline periods for the initiation of those actions. So when we reviewed the state model ordinance that just came out this February, we also just made sure that it followed all of those recommendations that the NC State University Farm Law section recommends. And an example of that kind of language is we changed language around nuisance suit protection that the voluntary ag district provides our local farmers to reducing the likelihood of a lawsuit due to public awareness of voluntary ag district. It's a slight change, but it's a recommendation for reducing county liability. And then the last piece of the changes we made, we wanted to make sure that since the last major update of our ordinance was in 2016, we wanted to make sure that it reflected all of our current program policies and practices. So we removed a couple redundant sections, as well as taking out some of our policies out of the ordinance and keeping them within our own internal staff policies so that we could update them as needed without having to come update the ordinance. So those policies are all reviewed and approved by Ag Advisory Board as they get changed. And so, yeah, that's kind of a brief of the three major areas we changed. And in order to officially adopt it, we would request board action tonight, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Ariel. Commissioners, are there any questions?
I'll just say thank you to staff because it was, and to legal as well, because it took a lot to actually go through and work on this. But obviously, we all know that we have to follow along and be in compliance with the state, so it was very necessary. So thank you to staff, and the Ag Advisory Board unanimously, of course, supported this. So I'm happy to make the motion to adopt the revised farmland preservation ordinance.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Sloan. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ordinance passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ariel. We have several budget amendments this evening, and the first is for Helene Recovery Recycling Infrastructure Grant. And Christy Smith from Solid Waste is with us. Good evening, Christy.
Good evening. I'm Christy Smith again at Solid Waste, and thank you for the opportunity this evening to share some exciting news about the Helene Recovery and Recycling Infrastructure Grant. Just some background, this funding originated from EPA. It was a pass-through grant to North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, and they are administering the grant for us. This is, to be noted, this is not a match grant. It's no match, so that's the good news. The objective was to assist Hurricane Helene impacted communities after the storm, to implement, expand, and recover improvement, waste reduction, and diversion in the region. There was $25 million available for the grant. Each applicant was asked to limit that to $5 million. We did ask for $5 million. Something to be noted, there were 45 applications that got submitted to the state with $122 million worth of asks. So that really does illustrate the need and the desire for recycling infrastructure in our region. I am proud to say Buncombe got the highest award at $3.5 million for our construction and demolition diversion project. So our construction and demolition, or C&D diversion project, we're going to spend the $3.5 million with no match for construction, enhancement, and investment in sorting, aggregating, and marketing recycling materials that come in to our facilities that are C&D loads. We'll build a new C&D diversion pad at the landfill. We're going to buy some equipment, we're going to buy some boxes, and we're going to start increasing resiliency by expanding the life of the landfill by adding more diversion programs. This also is in alignment with our 2030 strategic plan goal, where solid waste hopes to achieve 20% diversion for C&D materials. We did a waste audit last year specific for C&D waste. So we audited waste coming in at the transfer station and the landfill and saw that 32% of those loads had recycled material with local markets and programs that are available at our facilities. So that's about 17,000 tons on the high end, right? That's if you get every single cardboard box. So we are going to target materials that we have known markets for and programs for. So we're going to look for pulling out cardboard, clean wood and yard waste, metal, and clean brick and block. And with that, I have a request that you accept the grant and the budget amendment. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Christy. This is really exciting, especially just to know what this is going to do to save the life of our landfill and to have participated in the banana tossing, ribbon cutting at the new facility, and seeing all of this tie in to your all's good work is great. Commissioners, are there questions for Christy?
I'm
If not-
excited to make the motion to accept the Helene Recovery Grant and
Great.
help extend the life of our landfill,
Second?
and accept the budget amendment.
Great. I think we had a lot of seconds up there. So. Any further discussion? Yeah, it was all on this side that I heard. Any further discussion?
Just congratulations and
Oh, wait,
great
if
work.
not, we need to, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can you tell we're all really excited? Go ahead,
I'm
Commissioner
very excited
Wells.
too. Thank you.
Oh, just congratulations on this, getting that grant and being the biggest award in the state and all the great work y'all are doing over there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Always ask for the maximum amount on a grant.
Yes, ma'am. Always.
Our second budget amendment this evening is for Health, Employment, Property, and Casualty Fund, and John is back with us.
Good evening. This budget amendment increases the budget in the Health Insurance Internal Service Fund by $7.2 million due to current claims projections being over budget. This realizes revenue from rebates and stop-loss insurance credits for $4.6 million and appropriates $2.6 million of internal service fund balance as the offset. Questions?
Are there questions, Commissioners?
Sounds like you're saving us money, so motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitesides. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John. And we have two more amendments, and John is here for both of them. The next is the Woodfin PDF transfer.
This budget amendment realizes ad val property tax revenues for $533,079 to meet the debt service requirements for the Woodfin Project Development Financing Project as calculated by our finance department. We are budgeting this in the fiscal year 27 budget, so we do not have to bring an amendment at the end of the year.
Commissioners, are there any questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve? Thank you. Second, any questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. On to our last budget amendment, Special Funds Project, closures and reappropriations.
So this is the last of our closures amendment we started at the last meeting. This budget amendment closes 14 projects in the Special Project Fund to include 12 conservation easement projects, an economic development incentive project, and a sustainability project, and reappropriates $206,300 for transaction costs for 4 conservation easement projects related to existing open space bond projects. The savings from the incentive will be used toward future economic development commitments, while the savings from the sustainability project will be used to offset other sustainability projects.
Are there questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Sloan. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Budget amendment carries. Thank you. Our last item on our new business was our added agenda item, which I'm going to turn the floor over to Commissioner Wells as she brought that forward during our briefing this afternoon.
Thank you. You all have a resolution there in front of you, and the resolution is asking HCA CEO Sam Hazen to engage directly with stakeholders here in Western North Carolina. And we passed this in March at our Land of Sky Regional Council, and several other municipalities, local governments have already passed it. And I think a few others in Western North Carolina are also considering it. So I wanted to bring it to you this evening to have a discussion and see if there's support for us to approve this and send this along as well.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Wells. I certainly am here in support of this resolution. Thanks for bringing it to us. I was particularly interested in doing this and supporting this because of what's happened recently with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services approving additional beds for Mission Health. I think we're all shocked by that and astounded that that has happened and that we have to actually talk about this again. And I'm in shock in part because of some of the contents of this resolution points out that, for example, the federal government, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, has placed the hospital in immediate jeopardy in the past multiple times. They've slapped their wrists multiple times. There was recently public input session held regarding the request for increased beds for Mission Hospital and others. Basically, no local government stood up in support of Mission Hospital. So for all those reasons, I think I and many others were astounded at the state's decision. And that also goes to why I think it's so important that we pass this resolution and reach out to the CEO of HCA and tell him, ask him to visit our community, and that we're very interested and willing in having a conversation and a relationship to engage and kind of talk through the issues that we're having. So.
And if I can also speak to that, thank you, Commissioner Sloan and Commissioner Wells for bringing this forward. I attended that certificate of need public hearing at AB Tech back in December, and I sat there for 8 hours to speak for 3 minutes, and throughout the entire day, I heard almost no one speak in favor of Mission receiving these beds. Instead, I heard multiple residents from across the community raise serious concerns, and it wasn't just the public. I think we've all heard from multiple doctors and nurses who have tried to raise concerns about what they're seeing in regards to patient care and safety. And this is a hospital that has faced multiple immediate jeopardy findings, including 3 in roughly just the last 2 years alone, as Commissioner Sloan pointed out, and that is the most severe high-level citation that the federal agency can give. And it means that patients are at risk of serious harm or death. And it's not an isolated incident. They have called it a pattern. And yet the state awarded Mission 95 new beds. And as you said, I think we were all shocked by that. If these aren't sustainably fixed, there will be serious issues for patients locally. It could mean increased federal intervention, the risk of Medicare and Medicaid funding being reduced. That means service disruptions and ultimately real consequences for patients. And so the bottom line is that it's clear that growth doesn't fix systematic problems. And so I'm concerned about this, what appears to be a too big to fail dynamic with Mission, while they continue to face serious failures. So I think that this request is incredibly reasonable because Mission is important to our region, but they have lost a lot of trust among this community. And so if they want to rebuild that trust, they need to show up, answer tough questions, and be accountable to the people that we all serve. So I'm in full support of this. Thank you.
I'll just say in the interest of brevity, I'd echo the thoughts of my fellow commissioners, and thank you, Commissioner Wells, for bringing this forward. It's been an extremely disappointing couple of years, and I think it's had an impact on our community, so I think this resolution is appropriate and timely, and hope that we can see better for our community.
I'll just, to shorten everything, I'll say ditto. but I thank you, Commissioner Wells, for bringing this forward. And I've been in Asheville all my life, and I never thought, I spent 12 years on the foundation board for not this mission, the old mission, but I never thought I would see our hospital be viewed the way it is today. But that's what happens when you go for profit, I guess.
I'm just going to say that I hate the fact that Mission has had IJs, immediate jeopardy is what it's called. I also want to acknowledge that they have a plan of correction that they are working. I do think that competition is vital in healthcare. That is what is driving quality. So I will be voting definitely in agreement. And thank you, Commissioner Wells. I also spoke to Senator Julie Mayfield, who I guess has assisted in the letter as well with everyone. I mean, there's a team working.
She's supportive.
Okay, gotcha. And I feel good about this. I feel good, and I'm excited. But my hopes is in healthcare, we need as many providers as we can. And I went to a conference about healthcare in rural areas, and there's some systematic changes that are happening right now. We need Mission to be a strong key player here in Buncombe County as they once were. So I'm hopeful for this meeting and to see what outcomes we will see. Thank you.
Thank you all for the great comments this evening. I will wrap us up by saying I think what everyone has said speaks to exactly why we have the Advent Health Certificate of Need Letter of Support on our consent agenda this evening, and we've continued to support other medical hospitals who are looking to expand into our region for this very reason. So if there's no other conversation or discussion, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll take a second, I think.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Horton. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Commissioner Wells, thank you for your work on this in conjunction with Land of Sky. We appreciate it. All right, we had interviews this morning for our Mountain Community Capital Fund. We had 2 great applicants who were willing to serve on this. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Wells to determine, Sarah will just tally like we do, to determine who our selection will be.
Okay. Well, we had 2 really good candidates, so I hope whichever one we don't end up choosing will apply to do something else. Because it's really great when we see people want to have community involvement and serve on our boards. I will choose Matthew Corzine.
I failed to understand how to pronounce this gentleman's last name, but also Matthew Corzine?
Don't base it on what
Yeah,
think it's
I know.
Corzine.
I
think it was Corzine.
Yeah.
I will also recommend Matthew Corzine.
I'm just going to say Matthew.
Matthew Corzine for me as well.
Matthew.
Great.
Matthew.
All right, we have a unanimous selection for Matthew Corzine. And again, both great candidates, and I do hope that folks will continue to apply for these and stay engaged with their local government. All right, commissioners. Does anyone have updates from any boards that you are serving on? Okay, that is fine. All right, we have a few announcements. The next briefing and regular meeting of the board will be held on May 19th. The 3 p.m. briefing is downstairs as normal, and of course, our 5 p.m. meeting is located up here. Please note that we do have a public hearing for the proposed FY27 budget, and that will be held at the regular meeting on May 19th. Lastly, I want to note that the first public hearing for the CDBG-DR Commercial District Revitalization Grant Program will be held at the next meeting on May 19th. Please be on the lookout for more information coming this Friday, May 8th, when Buncombe County will be noticing the public hearing and opening public comment for the Commercial District Revitalization Grant applications. The public comment will start this Friday, May 8th, and will be open for 4 weeks, concluding on Friday, June 5th. Kurt, do we have a closed session this evening?
We do not have a need for a closed session tonight.
All right. All right, commissioners, and thanks for everyone for sticking with this for a couple hours tonight. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.